Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today's going to be a very exciting one. I'm heading up to the Chicago Auto Show Media Days, and as I'm sure you can tell by the title of this video as well as the vehicle that is currently sitting behind me, yes, I'm driving the 2024 Kona Electric. Now, this is actually the very first time I've been hands-on with the Kona EV and the first time I've actually driven one. So this is going to be a raw first impressions video driving this vehicle up to Chicago. Roughly here, it's about 180 miles from where I'm standing up to the Chicago Auto Show or McCormick Place where it is held. So it's well within the range of this SEL version with the larger battery pack. But of course, we will dive into some of the details and the trim differences between the new Kona Electric because I think there is certainly a value to be had opting for the larger battery pack over that of the standard range version. So without further ado, I just want to give a huge thanks to Green Family Hyundai here in Moline, Illinois for providing me with the Kona Electric to take up to Chicago for you guys. Of course, Hyundai has confirmed that there will be a Kona Electric in attendance, likely on the show floor as well as on their indoor EV test track, so that will be very exciting. Anyways, just want to give a huge thanks to them. If you're in the market for a new or used vehicle, definitely shop around. You see inventory is definitely building versus last year and some of the previous years, so chances are if you're looking for a harder to find model, you're going to start finding them on local dealership lots. Maybe save the new Hyundai Santa Fe because that is going to be a very, very popular SUV, and I can't wait to get my first look at that vehicle as well. So let's go ahead and top off the charge on this particular vehicle. It's just about at 98% or so, so we should be able to hit the road in just a few minutes, get the camera set up, and get rolling. Okay, setting off here in the 2024 Kona Electric. So just topped up to 100% like I said. It is stating 244 miles of estimated range with the HVAC on. If we change it to the driver only, it bumps it up a few miles. And of course, if we turn the HVAC off, it bumps it up even more. So right around 250 miles on the driver only. HVAC menu set at 72 degrees Fahrenheit, which is a pretty comfortable interior temperature. But of course, I will be interested to see how we do at about 70 miles an hour. Because of course those are interstate speeds. Don't really care to go less than that. I'm only driving about 180 miles, which should leave me a decent buffer. And there is some DC fast chargers within just a couple miles of McCormick Place. Now, of course, it would be preferable if there was charging on site, which there may or may not be level 1 charging. Thankfully, the Kona EV does come with a level 1 charger still. I'm not worried about not making it without stopping or anything like that. But it would be nice to just charge on site, you know, forget about it for basically 2 days while this car is sitting there and, you know, just level 1 trickle charge. But we might have to stop at a DC fast charger, which may be good for this video just to see how the performance of the DC fast charging is here on the new generation Kona Electric. It is capable of roughly 100 kilowatts, so fairly decent fast charging capability, but certainly not the fastest like some of the 800 volt cars, which the Ioniq 5, Ioniq 6, everything like that are, since this still relies on a 400 volt architecture, just like the first generation. So first impression sitting out here, it's actually, of course, feels electric, quiet, decent acceleration. I didn't put my foot down, so I don't know how the exact acceleration is, but certainly seems fairly enjoyable, fairly quiet. This one being an SEL is not fully loaded, of course, so it doesn't have all the features and amenities. It still has, you know, the basic cloth seats, which are okay. Comes in right around the $38,000 price point, but believe it or not, last month, I'm not sure if Hyundai's continuing it this month or not, Hyundai had, you know, a $7,500 incentive on Kona EV, like right out the gate from launch. So if that is still the case, that makes this car that I'm driving roughly about, you know, $31,000 to $32,000, which certainly makes it much more tolerable for, you know, a commuter electric vehicle, subcompact SUV, stuff like that. And, you know, I could see recommending this one for the low $30,000 price point, you know, depending on what my overall thoughts are, the efficiency I get and stuff, which we will see later in this video. But so far, first impression seems pretty good. So you join me here merging onto the interstate. I think I'm just going to give it just a little acceleration. I don't want to hurt our efficiency. It's not bad. It's not an Ioniq 5 all-wheel drive, but it might be very similar to maybe a single-motor Ioniq in terms of acceleration. But no, that really is not bad. More than acceptable. likely very similar in, you know, overall output versus the 1.6 liter turbo Kona, which of course I do have videos here on the channel going over that vehicle. But anyways, so we'll go ahead and just set the cruise here at, you know, right around 70 miles an hour. It says it'll be about 2 hours and 26 minutes here, 159 miles. Should arrive at 12:22 p.m., which is about an hour ahead of schedule, or where I need to be to arrive, which leaves me plenty of time for any incidents that may arise. But, you know, upon first impressions, it seems very quiet here on the interior, much like that of, you know, normal electric vehicles, if you will. Smooth. You know, this next generation Kona as a whole, you know, is a little bit stiffer as a chassis. You know, the electrics all have the multi-link independent rear suspension, which to me helps with ride quality as well as handling and performance in that regard. The technology on the inside of the new Kona is fantastic. Dual 12.3-inch displays, high resolution, wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, physical buttons throughout the interior, which is fantastic. Now, there are a few like little nitpicky things that Hyundai has changed from the previous generation, or what they normally do. For instance, the wiper one swipe function is now down instead of up. Not sure why they changed that here on this generation Kona, but that is just, you know, the opposite of what it once was. Of course, they are switching the adaptive cruise control and highway drive assist to the left side of the steering wheel, which formerly it was on the right. So I guess now that we have some of my first impressions out of the way, I want to go over some of the differences in the trim levels for this all new next generation Kona Electric. So starting out with the Kona Electric SE. This is just the SE. There's no standard range and long range version like the Ioniq 5 or the Ioniq 6, which does offer 2 different size battery packs and configurations for the standard SE model. So there's just one option for the Kona SE. It comes with about a 46 to 48 kilowatt hour battery pack, a little less horsepower than that of the, you know, SEL and Limited with the larger battery pack. I believe about 160, 170 horsepower, same 188 pound-feet of torque as those larger battery pack cars. So you don't lose out on torque, just a little bit of top-end horsepower. And it's rated at 200 miles of EPA estimated range. Now, if you step up to the SEL or the Limited, that automatically gives you the larger battery pack available in this vehicle, right around 64 to 65 kilowatt hours, gives you 261 miles of EPA estimated range, and just a little bit more horsepower out of the front electric motor found in this vehicle at 201 horsepower, 188 pound-feet of torque. And this is noticeably reduced versus the first gen Kona Electric, which, from what I understand, I've never actually driven that vehicle, was quite a you know, wheel spinning monster, had a ton of torque up front. So that is a little bit of a bummer, but at the end of the day, this is kind of more an economy focused car, not really a performance machine, which the Ioniq 5 and Ioniq 6 all-wheel drive definitely are quite quick for what they are. And of course, of the upcoming Ioniq 5N is certainly a performance monster. But anyways, when you look at the Kona SE versus the SEL and the Limited, the difference, the Kona SE starts in the $31,000 to $32,000 price range, if I'm not mistaken. The Kona SEL, as we're driving here, starts at about $36,000 to $37,000, not including destination. So if you add about $1,300, $1,400 for destination, that means the Kona SE starts, you know, $33,000 or so, and the SEL comes in about $38,000, and then the Limited will come in about $42,000. I'll have all this information up on the screen so you guys can have the exact information. But there's only about a $4,000 difference, give or take a few $100s, between a Kona SE and a Kona SEL. Now, of course, moving up to the trim lineup, like usual Hyundai vehicles, moving up to a higher trim, you get more equipment and comfort and convenience features inside the vehicle itself. So here with the Kona SEL, you get like a power driver's seat, you get heated front seats, you get a leather-wrapped steering wheel, you get the roof rails for the crossbar capability on the roof of the vehicle, and you get a couple other things which certainly make it a more livable vehicle on a day-to-day basis, in my opinion, versus the standard SE. Now, all Konas will come with the, you know, battery heating system or the battery preconditioning system, which is very nice. That is standard equipment across the board. Certainly helps with colder climates and everything like that, optimizing charging range and efficiency and all that stuff. But, you know, for about $4,000, even if you say $4,500, to me, opting for the Kona SEL is almost a no-brainer, given that you're getting the larger battery pack in the vehicle. Now, I get that some people out there may not need the extra range or even want to spend the extra money. It is over 10% of the MSRP, but To me, I think 260 miles is much more usable and realistic, especially when you factor in some of the cold weather driving that you may be doing here in the Midwest or the northern states or something like that, versus 200 miles of total range, where that may be reduced down to 160 or so in cold weather, depending on your ambient conditions and everything like that, where 260 may be reduced down to 230, 220, something like that. So you guys have to let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Do you think the Kona SE for about $4,000 to $4,500 cheaper is worth it, losing out on potentially pushing about 20 kilowatt hours of battery pack and 60 miles of EPA estimated range? But anyways, to just give you my, I guess, first initial efficiency numbers here on this trip, we're just over 31 miles into the journey. I would say about 20 something of those have been here on the interstate. And it says so far we're averaging 3 miles per kilowatt hour, which is actually, I think, very good at these speeds. All things considered, the external ambient conditions are just under 40 degrees Fahrenheit. So not super, super cold for this time of year. It's actually much warmer than usual. But I think 3 miles per kilowatt hour is very good here at 72 with the cruise control set. So we'll have to see if that creeps down or not, or just tends to creep up. But I think so far so good. We're going to make it there with, like I said, plenty of range to spare. Okay, so you joined me quite a while later. We are now about 80 miles into the trip so far. The efficiency has dropped down to 2.7 miles per kilowatt hour, which is a little bit disappointing to see. I'm not exactly sure. We might be driving into some sort of headwind, and we are quickly losing any sort of major buffer as far as the computer said we had as of the time of leaving or just after. It says we have 127 miles of range left. We still have about 91 miles to go. So I think I might have to end up reducing my speed. I've been, holding 72 now for quite some time. We're at 56% state of charge. So if I go on based on, what we've actually accumulated in terms of efficiency and mileage, crossing the 80 mile mark as we speak, I still have, more than 80 to go, and I'm only at 56% state of charge. We're certainly going to be cutting it close. I would say could be under 5% of the battery, and preferably I would like to at least leave a 5% buffer to make it to the charging station just a couple miles away. So I think at this point, probably going to drop it down to 70 miles an hour, which is the speed limit. See if by chance our efficiency starts creeping back up and our estimated range holds steady. But yeah, it's, these situations where, you're going to lose efficiency and range doing, interstate speeds, because EPA only does about 55% of their cycle, I believe, is based on roughly interstate speeds. And of course, the car's guessometer is doing its best to, try to adapt on the fly as to, what conditions are, and what efficiency it's seeing coming out of the battery and the motors and everything like that. But seeing that we still have, 91 miles to go to the hotel, I only have 56%, 55% state of charge, and we've only traveled 82 miles. Yeah, looks like it's going to be very, very close, and a lot closer than I was wanting it to be. Okay, so you joined me about a half hour later or so. We just crossed 105 miles traveled, still remaining at 2.7 miles per kilowatt hour. Which is a little bit surprising given, I've stayed steady at 70 miles an hour, so dropped it 2 miles an hour. But the reason I cut in right here is, well, A, I have to use the restroom and the DeKalb Oasis is coming up, but B, is because we are basically crossing the point at which the car's range estimate, 85 miles, 41% state of charge, now matches the exact distance I have to travel to the hotel, 84 miles. So at this point, it basically is saying, or should say, look, you're not going to make it if you keep up your efficiency and speed and everything like that. So basically what I'm saying is I'm going to have to stop. And that's just not what I had planned on. That's not really what my preferred method to do is. But at the end of the day, this is kind of a real world situation, and I'm testing out this car for the very first time. And I'm going to stop at the DeKalb Oasis like I mentioned. Now, they do have supposedly a free ChargePoint Level 2 charger. Now, I don't think this necessarily makes sense to stay plugged in for even, a half hour, but I might just see if it happens to be available. Go ahead, plug the car in. It's 6.6 kilowatts is what it says it outputs, which is, again, very, very slow. On a road trip like this, you really don't want to plug into that. But at the same time, if I were to get, maybe, 20 to 25 minutes worth of charge, that could be, several percentage. Could that be enough to make it to the hotel? I don't know. Okay, so not exactly sure if you guys heard that, but went on the ChargePoint app, activated the charger, it unlocked, and immediately started charging. So we are juicing up at 6.7 kilowatts, which, like I said, is not ideal, but I do have to run and use the restroom anyway, so why not get a few extra kilowatts while I'm here. Okay, so tried the blink station in front of the Genesis dealer. That did not work at all. Not sure if that station's not online yet, or if, just something else about it, but that did not successfully activate at all, so that was a total fail. That's a brand new Genesis dealer too. Anyways, went over to the Hyundai dealership across the street using the ChargePoint charger, only getting about 28 kilowatts, so super slow, even though this is the same 62.5 kilowatt dispenser that I used this morning to top the vehicle up at a different Hyundai dealership. So not exactly sure why this is giving reduced output, but it definitely should be doing much faster than that. Anyways, I guess 28 kilowatts is better than 6 that I was getting a little bit ago, but still, this is not ideal, and this infrastructure really needs to be made better at this point, because it's quite ridiculous. The games you got to play just to find, a charger that dispenses full output and works upon activation and plug in and, on the app and everything like that. But enough of me ranting anyways. Hopefully I am just going to sit here for like 20-25 minutes. Really at this point, I'm kind of cutting it close to where I need to be in terms of, getting there about 1:30 or, 1:15 or so. Okay, so since I'm running a little bit close on time, I just want to give you guys a recap. I'm not sure what was going on with the car's estimation and what it's using for efficiency, but it says I have 55 miles of estimated range left with 27% state of charge. Believe it or not, I was driving, quite spiritedly with the flow of traffic, and I was getting 3.5 miles per kilowatt hour since our last partial charge. Probably really didn't even need to stop last time and spend whatever half hour we did at the charger. It would be nice if I could find a 120 volt outlet in here to just trickle charge, because that might get me home. Reserved for low emitting and fuel efficient vehicles. Well, I'd say an EV fits that bill quite well. We have a 120 volt outlet here on the end cap. Went ahead and set the charger at about 10 amps, plugged it in, and it started charging. So we are juicing the Kona up on 120 volt trickle charge effectively, and that's okay because this car is going to be sitting here for probably close to 48 hours at this point. Maybe just a little bit less. So at that rate, we'll have to see what it is charging at in terms of kilowatt. I assume right around 1 kilowatt in terms of speed. All right, so for some reason it got bumped down to 6 amps, which is the default charger setting. Bumped it up to 10, and you can see pulling 1.1 kilowatts. This dropped down to 56 hours, which isn't too far off, of 100% as if this sits here for 48 hours. So I guess if I go ahead and bump it up to 12, which is the maximum potential and capability of that stock one from Hyundai, it might get under the 48-hour threshold. Okay, so continuing on with my Kona Electric, I guess, review and road trip video. Of course, here at the auto show, I knew they were gonna have a Kona Electric both for the test track over there in the green exterior, and they do have another one here on the show floor. And I believe this is the EV specific color, if I'm not mistaken. Have to look that up. I'll go ahead and put it on the screen what the exact color is called, but this one is the limited trim of the Kona EV. Of course, has the same battery tech and all of the same specs in terms of range as the SEL that I drove up here, but in terms of features and amenities and options, this is gonna come fully loaded with everything that the Kona has to offer in this new generation as of the 2024 model year. And I kind of just wanna walk around this one, poke around on the inside, and see, you know, if I change my opinion in terms of whether or not I would go for SEL if I was looking at the Kona Electric, just to get the big battery and some of the nicer amenities, including heated seats, leather-wrapped steering wheel, stuff like that. Or if I would jump up to the Limited, get heated and ventilated front seats, power liftgate, the premium audio system. The list really goes on for what the Kona Electric has to offer, just the Kona in general in this new generation has to offer. But it is going to come in at a $42,000 price point as equipped. So let's go ahead and just take a quick look, poke around, compare it to, of course, the SEL that I drove up here. Now this one does have the H-Tex leatherette seating surfaces. You will get a nicer door panel with some of the nicer materials on the door itself. So this is going to just be slightly more soft touch in this area in specific, but outside of that, very similar. Obviously this one is the black interior. The gray is going to be available in both SEL as well as the Limited. There's the power driver seat, which you do get on the SEL, and is one of the reasons I would say that is a worthy option to get, in addition to the larger battery pack and range. But overall, I would say, you know, not necessarily that you can go wrong with either one, but I would be careful as to which one I would pick. You know, is it worth the extra money for you? You would have to go ahead and decide that for yourself. You still get the same dual 12.3-inch screens. Climate control is going to be the same. But like I said, you do get the ventilated front seats, heated steering wheel that is 2-stage. You get the parking sensors on the back, just a few additional options and features. Wireless charging pad with Hyundai Digital Key, that would be something that I would really like on a daily basis. All this is going to be the same down here. There's the auto dimming interior rear mirror with garage home link, so that's another nice feature. Overhead LED lighting. You do get the larger power sunroof, so that is something that you may or may not want. It does have an integrated power shade, so you know, just lets in a little bit of additional light, opens up the cabin just a little bit. Let's go ahead and take a quick look out the back. Really not too many additional features back here other than the seating surfaces, and the door panel themselves are going to be slightly nicer, but all this looks pretty much identical to the SEL, like I said, outside of those materials. And then of course you do get the power liftgate, which would be very, very handy on a daily basis. Man, that's something that would be hard to pass up. Of course, you will get like remote smart park assist on the key fob with the Limited, stuff like that. The subwoofer here on the right side for that Bose premium audio. And there's the huge amount of underfloor storage that you're going to find on pretty much any Kona Electric out there with the integrated storage shade. So, you know, I don't know if I could justify, you know, the additional, I think it's $4,000 to $5,000. I'd have to look it up and get exact pricing on that. Whether or not I would, you know, recommend somebody stick with the SEL or go up to the Limited. Like I said, I think there's a few key options and features here on this one, on the Limited, that I think may be a make or break decision as to, you know, sticking with the SEL for about $38,000 or going up to the Limited for about $42,000. I guess if you want the H-Tex seating surfaces on the inside with the ventilated seats, you get the power sunroof, power liftgate, remote smart park assist, full LED lighting on the exterior, so you get the LED turn signals instead of incandescents, and you know, just a few more advanced features and luxury amenities like that. So you guys have to let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. I'm a little bit undecided at this point as to which one I might get, but I think the SEL still might be a better bang for the buck value, given you are getting the larger battery pack with, of course, more range, more usable range on a daily basis versus that 200 miles, which may realistically be like 160, 170, 180, depending on your ambient conditions. So that's going to do it for our coverage of the 2024 Chicago Auto Show. Now, of course, this only begins the second half of our journey here with the 2024 Kona EV, because, of course, we do have to road trip it back to where I brought it from. And that's going to be about 180 miles or so. I'll have to go ahead and check the exact distance. But I did just finish talking with Kyle and Francie from Out of Spec. Great to meet you guys if you guys happen to check out this video in the future. But I was able to successfully level 1 charge here on a standard 120 volt outlet at the maximum 12 amps that this charger will provide to the car, about 1.3 kilowatts of charge speed over a period of about 46 to 47 hours. So I kind of did accomplish my goal of, you know, getting here to the parking garage, just trickle charging the EV, free energy. So that was very cool as far as that goes. videos, and hopefully this will provide me to not have to stop on my return trip. Not only the windy app that Kyle recommended me, because I think I was facing a headwind on the way up here with poor efficiency results, but also just to see, what the overall conditions are. It is pretty warm outside, so that shouldn't be an issue as far as cold weather reduced range. But I'm just excited to see, hopefully, that this will make it back on one charge, 100%. Now, what's interesting about this is it looks like it's only estimating 228 miles of range. Now, that must be factoring in some of my efficiency results on the way up here, because as you guys know, at the start of this video, when I pulled it out of the dealership at 100% stated charge, it was saying like 263, something around that. So that has certainly dropped, and that is a little bit concerning. So looking at some of the data here, it looks like it is coming out of the south-southwest at currently about 12 miles an hour, looks to be dying off as time goes on or as the evening goes on. I'm going to be heading west on Interstate 80, so hopefully we don't have too much of a headwind, as that will obviously negatively impact my overall range and capabilities as to how far I'm going to get. I guess I'm going to be heading out here, hitting the interstate, give you guys an update once we get out of town, and maybe towards the halfway point or so, see how the efficiency is doing and see if I will make it home on one single charge. So as you can see, we just passed an Ioniq 5, and one thing that's interesting to me is that I really don't see all that many of those out on the roadway, out in public per se, but we are currently averaging about 3.7 to 3.8 miles per kilowatt hour, just under 43 miles into the journey, still have about 131 miles to go, or just under 2 hours of travel time. So far, we're holding a pretty good efficiency, even, right around the 70-mile mark. So not exactly sure if the winds are kind of died off, they're basically calm, no wind, or if we just really haven't hit any major headwinds head on, haven't got far enough out of the city per se. But so far, we are doing much, much better than on the way up, I would say, in terms of efficiency, doing roughly 1 mile per kilowatt hour better, because as you know, on the way up, basically until we hit Chicago, we're getting like 2.7, which is absolutely terrible for a vehicle like this, even at 70 miles an hour. But we'll have to see here in the next, 50, 70 miles or so, what the efficiency number, stays around. It just ticked down to 3.7. Says we have 183 miles of range at 82% state of charge, which is about a 53 mile delta between the actual travel distance we have left and what the range estimate is on the computer. We made it back to the dealership. I am absolutely exhausted. Just over 3 hours of drive time, and our final results will be up on the screen. Plus, I'll go ahead and discuss that in my final opinions and findings here with this first Kona EV road trip. 3.2 miles per kilowatt hour, 173.1 miles on the trip back. That is slightly different, I think, than the way up there, within 5 or 10 miles or so. And 13% stated charge left on the battery with an estimated range of 22 miles, which again seems a little bit low, but we did hit the battery low battery warning at about 20%, and does start to cut power at that point progressively, of course, down to 0% in whatever reserve the pack has in the battery. So that's going to be it for this part. I'll see you guys in a second once I have all my data gathered and all my thoughts and opinions gathered as well. Okay, so you joined me several days later here after traveling to the 2024 Chicago Auto Show, and I find myself once again here in the exact Kona Electric I did travel up there with. Now, I've had a few days to kind of go over some of my thoughts and opinions about this vehicle, as well as gather the exact data that I did experience on that trip up there. And I do want to cover that in a little bit more detail here at the end of this video, so you guys get an understanding of, what I did actually experience in terms of, range, efficiency, everything like that. And then I'll kind of go over what my overall thoughts and opinions are here of this Kona Electric for the price point, the features that it has to offer, and everything like that. So taking a look at my trip up there, this one is a little bit messier than my return trip back because I did stop to charge at two different charge stops, which again, one is a level 2 as well as a DC fast charger at a Hyundai dealership. I traveled 170 miles on the way up, averaged about 2.8 miles per kilowatt hour of total efficiency. After I did stop to charge at the DC fast charger and then to the hotel, the efficiency was well into the mid 3 mile per kilowatt hour, likely because the headwind was not an impact, as well as the speeds might have varied a little bit more and been a little bit on the slower side. Again, I don't know my exact headwind or wind direction on the way up there, but I do assume that that was an impact because my efficiency was quite poor at about 70 miles an hour. Started and left here at 100% stated charge, ended and got to the parking garage at 27% stated charge, but did add 14.5 kilowatt hours of energy, or about 22% of this car's battery pack at those two different charge stops, about 2.4 at a level 2, and the rest of it was at a slower DC fast charger. So that's going to be the statistics as far as that goes on my trip up there. Now on the way back, this was much cleaner of a trip, given that I did not have to stop and charge, and basically just have the starting state of charge, the ending state of charge, and the amount of energy I did use. So on my way back, I did take a slightly different route on Interstate 80, 173.2 miles of total distance. Average efficiency was 3.2 miles per kilowatt hour, which was much better than the 2.8 that I experienced on the way up. I did have about a 5 to 7 mile an hour headwind and slight off-axis crosswind, depending on which part of the leg that you're looking at. But overall, a pretty mild headwind, I would say. Left the parking garage at 100% stated charge, got back to the dealership at 13% stated charge. So as you can see, used about 87% of the battery pack, which I believe is in the low to mid 50 kilowatt hours of total energy used. So that's going to be the data as far as what I used on the to and return trips of this journey. And overall, I had a very pleasurable experience driving this car. I would say efficiency numbers, especially on my return trip, were kind of to be expected at 70, 72 miles an hour. The low 3 miles per kilowatt hour is typically, I think, what you would find in a fairly efficient electric vehicle out there. Although, as I did experience in my Blazer EV video, make sure you guys check that out if you haven't already. Coming back from Texas, I was averaging in the mid 2 miles per kilowatt hour range, which was quite poor. But again, that vehicle is not quite as efficient as the Kona EV or some of the other vehicles from Hyundai, such as the Ioniq 5 or Ioniq 6. So I would say 3.2 is actually quite respectable, given there was a very slight headwind and we were traveling greater than 70 miles an hour out on the interstate. Now, in terms of charge speeds, everything like that, unfortunately, I was unable to test the actual speeds of this new 2024 Kona Electric, although I do have a video upcoming here in a next episode where I take a Kona EV out to a DC fast charger and test the actual real-world charge speeds that you'll get on this vehicle, although I have to say that might need to be redone, given the vehicle did not fully precondition, but I think it is a good representation of what maybe the average person might experience if they don't necessarily fully precondition the vehicle, but maybe just partially preconditioned. So hopefully you guys will stick around and stay tuned for that. That should be out here in a couple days or well within the next week or so. But I guess, yeah, I mean, the car drives very well. It's extremely quiet on the inside. It has a good amount of power around town or on the interstate. It's certainly not a slouch, but not a performance monster either, so somewhere in the middle. The technology and driver assistance technology is absolutely fantastic. The dual 12.3-inch displays are bright and crisp. You have all of your necessary features here in the SEL that one would expect, although the top limited is very compelling in my opinion, given you do get the heated and ventilated seats, the H-Tex leatherette, and the more advanced safety systems. So, you know, I see people's opinions if they would want to go for the limited for about $4,000 more than this vehicle. But with the current discounts found on this one that I'm currently seeing in, you can basically get it for at or less than $30,000, pretty much no matter where you live at this point. So I think that's a pretty good deal for an electric vehicle that can do in the mid 200 miles of EPA estimated range. Now, of course, if you're doing only highway stints, you're going to reduce that down to about 200, 210 miles of total range, which again is not bad, but then you factor in the slower DC fast charging and it makes road tripping maybe just a little bit less pleasurable than some of the other alternatives that are out there, but certainly not terrible experiences by any means. I guess one other thing I do want to add as far as the outro of this video is that I still think I would recommend getting the larger battery pack here in the 2024 Kona EV, given the fact that I experienced the efficiency I did out on the interstate, you know, in real world conditions. Really wasn't Arctic by any means. And this car did sit inside the dealership before I took it and left on my first leg. So the battery was at room temperature, so it did not have a cold battery. I would say overall ambient temperatures did not impact this trip greatly, given they were at least around 40 degrees with a warm battery pack. And then on my return trip, I think it was about 50 degrees ambient temperature sitting inside a parking garage. So I would say ambient conditions really didn't have a huge impact on this overall trip in either direction, but maybe just a very slight impact. As we know, this was about 175 miles either direction, and at those interstate speeds and the reduced efficiency, this makes going from here to Chicago possible on one charge in most conditions once again, where if you do get the standard range version of the Kona EV with 200 miles of EPA estimated range, that might be actually impossible because it simply does not have enough energy in its battery pack and enough range to do it at 70, 72 miles an hour, and you'd have to travel substantially slower just to get the higher efficiency numbers to make it to Chicago on one single charge. So if you're frequently traveling from, you know, the Quad Cities here where we have an Electrify America on Interstate 80 to Chicago, then I would say you definitely, certainly want the larger battery pack that is going to be available in this vehicle versus the smaller battery. But I think that's pretty much going to be it. I haven't driven, you know, nearly every EV that is offered in the compact SUV space. So again, I can't really compare this to other offerings in the mid to upper $40,000 range, but again, I would say this has to be a solid offering, especially because the Bolt is no longer available. So that has been discontinued. I would say Bolt buyers that are interested in upgrading to a newer EV, this might be a solid option for you. Given the size is going to be similar to the Bolt EUV. It has faster DC fast charging speeds than the Bolt did, and I would say it has more advanced safety features as well, just being a next generation vehicle from Hyundai. So I guess if you were interested in the Bolt and are looking for an affordable subcompact SUV with very similar specs to the Bolt, just a little bit better depending on what you're looking at, this will probably be the best option for you. Again, under $30,000, but you know, if you get a fully loaded one, probably in the low to mid $30,000 price range. But nonetheless, I think that's going to do it here for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I always enjoy doing these, you know, road trip videos and having a little bit more experience behind the wheel of some of these all new vehicles. I think it was a great opportunity. Once again, a huge shout out to Green Family Hyundai here in Moline, Illinois for providing me here with this Kona Electric. Anyways, let me know your thoughts and comments down in the comment section below. Do you think the Kona EV is a good buy? Would you get the smaller or bigger battery pack? Which trim level would you get, etc.? Interested to hear your thoughts on that. But as always, I appreciate the support and hope to see you guys in the next one.